noticed there were no minutes for January 25th.
Right. Okay, hello and welcome to the Town of Dudley Planning Board for Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. Present this evening, we have Thomas Chinaki, Clerk of the Board. We have Richard Clark, Member. We have Dave Durgan, Member. We have Daniel Edmiston, Vice Chairman. And we have our Town Planner, William Skilling, and myself, Guy Horn, Chairman. First item on our agenda, Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I noticed the TV was gone.
All right, so we have on our agenda, next item, approval of minutes. Okay, so January 25th, you said that was the meeting that got canceled, right?
Yes, correct.
So there's no meeting minutes for that. We do have meeting minutes for January 11th. Would somebody like to make a motion for the January 11th minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the minutes as presented for the January 11th, 2023 meeting.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of accepting the meeting minutes from the 11th of January? Aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay.
I wasn't on the board, actually.
Yep. Your name's on the list, but it's, I think you're right. You weren't here. All right, so we have four yes, one abstention. So we need to sign 2 copies of that.
Copies, we got one started.
You got one started?
Yep.
Get it? Too many pockets?
Yeah.
Mr. Clark. Okay. There are the minutes. Next item on our agenda, A&R plans, and we have none for this evening. And the next item on our agenda, we had review of preliminary plan, but that's gonna be happening on the 8th of March. We also have that public hearing on the 8th of March, so this will be after the public hearing on the 8th of March. Standard business, we're down to number 1, discuss status report on finishing construction of acceptance of uncompleted unaccepted subdivision streets, including Pierpont Estates, Rocky Hill Estates, Country View Estates, Tobin Farm Estates, Lyon Estates.
So on Pierpont Estates, Tony Sequeira asked if he could consolidate all his various securities. I think he's got 4 or 5 phases, and each of them have their own instrument, so he wanted to combine them all into one and have cash held at the town. So I've asked Jeff Walsh to do a completion estimate for the entire project, and then he can cancel. He's got a letter of credit with Bank Hometown and some other instruments, so that whatever the dollar amount is, he would have cash here held by the town treasurer
Okay.
to ensure completion.
Did we get the report from Graves Engineering yet? Not yet?
No, he hasn't started yet. I talked to Jeff today.
Okay,
He hopes to get to it soon.
okay, all right.
The other one I have is Tobin Farm. You know that the town meeting approved the betterment for that project. We had a meeting today with Jeff Walsh, and the plan is for Jeff to start working on the bid document for that project.
Okay,
He will then, help assist the town in going up to bid to hire a contractor to do the work. So we're shooting probably in a couple of months. We should have that document ready and out to bid, late spring. So the work should get completed
is there
during the summer.
is there a typical time frame when they put something out to bid? Is it out to bid for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Usually give about 30 days.
30 days for the contractors, the companies, the construction companies to reply.
Right. And they will need to do filing with the Conservation Commission because the notice of intent has expired. So they need to refile, get a new order of conditions if necessary, and then proceed from there.
Okay. But then after the bids come in and one's accepted, then we'll actually know the price of what the
Right,
project's gonna
correct.
cost.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know you've been the contact person with regards to Country View Estates.
Yes.
Any further?
No, and unfortunately, I haven't, I lacked in my duty of reaching out again, but I can try again.
So I think we can assume that won't be going forward.
Well, not, at least for the Springtown meeting, it doesn't look like.
Yeah.
Maybe we get lucky and have something for the Fall Town meeting, because that's not until October, right? The Fall Town.
Yes.
Yeah, and we did change the bylaw that roads could be accepted at either one.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think if Mr. Heaney is on, wintering in Florida and he comes back and he's willing to
Mhm.
do something, then it looks like it'll probably be something for the Fall Town
Right.
meeting.
So in that vein, Partridge Hill Road will be brought forward for acceptance this spring.
In the spring.
We have the acceptance plans and the as-built plans. So they've been submitted to the Selectman's office. They will, as you know, from last year's Piastre Road acceptance, they will forward it to the planning board for a report, a recommendation.
Okay.
Then they will hold a public hearing on the layout of that last section of Partridge Hill.
Yeah.
And then it'll go to town meeting for acceptance, so
Okay.
that'll be one we can put to bed.
Press off the list.
The other one is the residents of St. Anthony Street, or St. Anthony Road,
Yep.
which is by Raymond, have petitioned for betterment.
Okay.
So we will be holding a meeting with those residents.
It's a very short street,
It is,
so,
yeah, it's only 6 or 7 lots, something of that sort.
yeah,
But we did get the signed petition
okay.
for the betterment, so we'll have the meeting with them and give them an idea of the cost
Yeah.
to do that project, and
I
then,
I don't believe there's a cul-de-sac constructed at the end of that street,
I don't think so.
yeah, so,
Just, try to bring it up to the plan that was submitted at the time,
right,
so that they can, have that street accepted as well.
and plowed. Yep.
So,
Is there any money in that escrow account, or?
I don't know if that was even done as a
Oh,
subdivision
yeah.
street. It might have been before.
Those lots, the last two houses that were bought, those lots were bought at auction, so there should be something, I would think.
I think Valgo came in at some point and sort of did some road work and got approval for a couple of extra lots there, but I don't know if it was a fully, formatted subdivision
St.
plan.
Anthony's Road?
Yeah, it's up off of Raymond Street, it's at the end of Raymond Street,
Take a ride.
yeah. Just look at the tax maps that's on there.
I'm familiar with that one.
And I haven't heard anything from Misty Meadow, whether they want to proceed again this year or not, so
Okay.
we can wait for them if they want to.
Right,
Try
because,
again.
because they have the option of doing that.
Right.
Okay. All right, that brings us, anything from Lion Estates?
We had a discussion today about, the enforcement of conditions and the requirement to keep subdivisions clean and contain sediment and keep detention basins, working properly. And so I think what we're going to do is create a policy for enforcement and assign enforcement duties to the highway superintendent
Okay,
to be able to go out and,
check.
if they don't do, so we have good information from Graves in terms of their site visits, what the issues and problems are.
Right.
And so we ask them to, fix those issues that arise during the course of the project, but if they don't, we need to enforce it somehow.
Yeah, I think one of the things we need to do is make sure that anybody that brings a new preliminary subdivision to us on a subdivision the size of what we're looking at Lions Estates, is that, we gotta make sure that they have the curbing and everything on the plans, because,
And then once the binder goes out, put the curbs up.
yeah, because, I mean, I've.
Don't clear a lot until you intend to build on it, so.
Well, if you had the curbs, at least you could contain the sediment on the lots versus letting it run over the street and into the next lot and then
Yeah.
down to the end of the cul-de-sac,
Yeah,
so.
that's been a bad example of lack of containment of
Right.
sediment.
Cause I mean, that's the only subdivision that I've been on, since I've been on the planning board, going back to the early 2000s, that's the only subdivision I can remember being built in Dudley that didn't have the curbs in place after they put down the binder course typically it's put down the binder, put the curbs in place, and then, you know, you come back later, you do your curb cuts after to get the driveways in, and then put the finish coat on and go right over it.
Yeah, but once they have vegetation still in place, then they don't have that runoff,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
you know?
So,
So in my construction experience, it's almost means and methods for a construction contractor, how he wants to do something. So if he chooses to clear cut, not put the curbs in, his business, but then he better make sure then that the runoff is being captured. I mean, that's one or the other, right?
Yeah,
How to
well-
do it. And I've never seen a project, and I've worked on projects from Piscataway up to Bangor, where there's been an issue. If there is an issue, it usually gets corrected, it's something that maybe the PM's not aware of, site superintendent didn't take care of. So I'm having a little trouble in understanding this. Is the developer being helpful with this, or is he, I mean, what's?
Somewhat, but it's a constant problem, you know, it just always seems to be sediment in the street, you know, erosion from the site, working into the detention basin, and he's not always keeping on top of it, so
Right.
when we, you know, find out about it,
and take a
He does
drive up
something.
there
Yep.
any day after a rainstorm, and you'll see.
Yeah, but if it's, I'm assuming everything's coming down the road
Yep.
and
Everything's
it's
clear.
collecting, right? So I mean, in theory, it would be his responsibility to divert that to a detention pond or something on his property there, where it could leach back in or whatever else, and I mean, he has a responsibility to take care
That
of this.
road's got some problems too, I think. You look at
I
it.
mean, don't disagree, like, don't dig a trench before it hits the road, keep it on the
Right.
property.
Exactly.
But usually, once you clear vegetation,
That's a problem.
problem.
right,
And then when you clear cut everything with no vegetation holding it back,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the berms would've done some of it, and probably wouldn't have kept everything off the roads, but it would've definitely been a better situation than what we currently see.
He also did that project all in one phase, so it's a fairly large area, which makes it difficult to control the site.
Yep.
So we're saying that the highway department's in charge of enforcement now? Because it sounds to me like a building inspector normally would be, and he would have the authority to just put a stop to the whole construction site until the developer tries to take care of this, I mean.
We think the highway superintendent is better qualified
Okay.
to oversee that kind of development than,
So then he has the authority then to put a stop on it if he wants
Yes,
to, just
he
stop
could-
all construction.
right,
Cease and
do a
desist.
stop work order or
Yep.
impose fines, that kind of thing.
Okay.
well, what happens if it's not in his contract, and he's like, no, get out of here? That'll be another problem.
If it's not what?
In his subdevelopment contract, that he has to contain it.
Yeah, to me, it's best construction practices. I mean, it's
Yeah.
required by
Yeah.
by the Commonwealth, so it has to be done.
Sure.
you know.
And there's a stormwater plan that they need to follow that EPA approves.
Right.
So there's lots of regulations, we just need to enforce them.
Okay, understood.
All right, so there are existing regulations that we're not enforcing, as opposed to having to create new regulations
Right.
to be enforced. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand either. So there is something put in play to enforce it.
All right, so next item on the agenda, inspections and actions associated with site plans. So we have Legacy Landing Country Club Acres, we have SEP Solar Oxford Avenue, JD&D 24 Oxford Avenue, and Stevens Mill.
Mr. Chairman, I routinely, and did this evening as well, walked through the Legacy Landing Country Club Acres, and I think I shared some photographs with you and as well. There was a very large dumpster that was placed in a position, and it was overflowing, if you will, and I think in some of the photographs that you saw, a lot of debris, a lot of packaging materials and things of that sort had blown off into the church parking lot. It's not contained at all. Now, the dumpster has been emptied as a new dumpster, and it's now positioned behind a large pile of dirt, so I don't think that's gonna be a problem. But there's also those barriers, the plastic around the perimeter,
Silt fence?
and they don't exist in some cases. They're just completely gone, and others, there's just a remnant, if you will. So, I don't know what happens in terms of spring rains, but I think we're gonna see a lot of that just kind of going over the border, again, probably more of it to the church lot than anywhere else, but unwelcome, I'm sure.
Well, this is another area now where the highway department could theoretically get out there and start enforcing what's supposed to be done.
Right. So that project and Lyons, I think, are the worst offenders, which has kind of raised the issue of
Yeah.
we can do a better job in
Right,
in
so
managing it.
it, up until now, it hasn't really been a problem that I can remember on any project.
Yep.
So, Did we get anything back on SEP solar? I know that there was some issues up there, but they had put a new plan in place, and I think Graves was gonna go back out and take a look at it. Did they do that yet?
I believe that issue's much better now. They've corrected the issues there, so that's much better.
Okay. And JD&D, I know they had their underground drainage put in place, and that got inspected. Do we have anything else on that?
Well, we had an issue with them paying the town for the inspections that Graves has been doing.
Okay,
But, you know, two was constantly after them, trying to, get them to send in the funds to pay Graves. And eventually we got it, but Graves actually had to contact them directly. They didn't really respond to the town.
okay.
But other than that,
It's
they're
been
doing
taken-
a good job with
It's
the
been
site.
taken care of.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to go back to the legacy landing, I may have distracted myself. Are we going to ask Graves to take a look at that, or did we address the issue with the builder? I don't know.
Which one?
Legacy landing in terms of,
Yes, that's part of the same problem that we've been having, so we're going to, take care of that by developing a new policy to,
okay, so the policy would apply to them as
Yes.
well, and they would
Yes,
be
correct.
advised of that and given some kind of
right,
time constraints in terms of getting.
yes.
remediation.
Mr. Murray that was one question I had for you. Mr. Murray was okay with taking on this?
He was,
this
yeah.
responsibility? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, great.
I think Mr. Murray, if I'm not mistaken, is going to take on the role of building inspector to some extent
He's an
in
assistant
future,
building
if not
inspector, right.
presently, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so we've got Stevens Mill. Anything to report on that? I know
No.
there was an article in the paper that Mr. Clark shared.
Yeah,
But that's-
out to August.
Sounds very promising.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it doesn't go. Any further?
Okay. Item 3 on our, is it new business? Nope, outstanding business. No. Item 3, review decision for Nichols College Townhome Project and possible vote to approve. We already voted to approve that.
It's been approved, you haven't approved the decision yet.
We haven't signed the decision
We
because
haven't signed
they were gonna bring in the paperwork to prove that they own the property that they were.
Yeah, the latest information I had is that they will be closing in early March, and I think it should be in possession of the college by the next meeting, so
Okay,
you should be able to,
if they can present us something?
yes.
Yep, that'd be great. Consider possible zoning amendments for the annual town meeting, revisions to the flood plan bylaw, battery energy storage systems, site plan review threshold for parking, short-term rentals, and others members may suggest. So is this for the Springtown meeting coming up in May?
Yes, so it's time to really start thinking about zoning amendments, so that's why I put that down.
Okay.
I know we'll have the floodplain amendment, because that's being required by the state that the town.
And did we ask Central Mass Regional Planning for help with that, or are we doing it
No,
ourselves?
I made those changes.
Okay,
It's been reviewed by the state people,
and they're,
so they're fine with it.
okay,
It needs to go through town council
all right,
to make sure that it's, meets the local bylaw, but
okay.
other than that, I think it should be fairly straightforward. I don't think there's any question. The town needs to be a member of the floodplain insurance program, and that's a requirement, so
Okay.
it's just a matter of getting the proper language in place.
We do have borders with 2 rivers, so,
What's that?
we are bordered by 2 rivers in town, so.
Correct, yeah. The battery energy storage systems is something that's come up recently. Some of the solar farms would like to be able to put in these battery systems to store energy which is generated so that it can be used, when there's a peak.
Right,
So I know we allowed one with the landfill because it was presented at that time,
right,
but a lot of the older systems don't have them, and so we need to figure out a way to allow them.
so it would be a change to the solar bylaw.
I think so.
But these units, from what I understand, are basically self-contained pods that they just drop off and,
It's a
Yes.
shipping container,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Pretty much.
If-
There may be quite a few of them, depending on how much energy you generate.
and there's no chance of them leaking lithium or anything like that, cause they're self-contained,
There's fire codes that deal with that kind of question.
right?
So I think for us, it's a matter of where they would go. Is there any kind of a buffer distance from a property line? Do they make noise that we need to be concerned about? Do we want to have landscaping around them? So we can talk about those kinds of issues.
Yeah, they may be able to be tucked underneath the solar panels if they're on racks or something like that.
The other thought is whether you'd want to allow standalone systems that aren't really associated with the solar project.
Where would they get the energy to store from?
Well, there could be a windmill maybe, or a hydro plant out in West Dudley or something of that sort.
Okay. All right, yeah. And threshold for parking, was that?
Remember we talked about that when the paving of the the Dudley Plaza took place, and we
Yeah,
thought that our parking
I think-
threshold would apply to them, and we found out it didn't.
I think what we need to do with that site plan review bylaw is just, I think there was just one word in there that we needed to remove so that it would have triggered them to come to us.
Right. I think it said additional parking spaces.
Right, I think it should just say any parking spaces.
Right.
You know, so.
I think it was 10 or something, but we
Yeah,
can't.
because I mean, that was a pretty big project for no review.
So we wanted to close that loophole, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a simple change, it'll be just like,
Mhm.
you know, at the most one sentence or maybe a couple of words changing.
Right.
Yeah.
Did the members have any other suggestions? And during the year, sometimes things come up and, you know.
We
Yeah,
did have two that failed at the last town meeting. One of them was the shared driveways, and the other one was the electric vehicle charging units. And from what I can see, those charging units that Marty's are no longer usable. I don't know what happened to them. I think the only thing we've got in town is what's in front of the library.
I think so.
So, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to try, I mean, you already have those two written, we could.
There was a
maybe-
concern in there about nonprofits, and I think I recognize that, there's an issue if it's a burden for them in terms of trying to make them comply with something like that.
I mean,
An
it's-
exemption for nonprofits.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be a matter of time, though, the state will pass the bylaw and then everybody will have to do it whether they like it or not. It's gonna be like handicap parking spaces, you gotta have them.
There were some issues with the language that was proposed in terms of renovations of parking lots, I think, that was not well defined. So maybe we could just make it apply to new parking lots going forward or something of that sort.
Yeah. Yeah,
That sounds reasonable.
it's a start.
Yes.
And then let the state put the rest of the regulation in for us.
I kind of hope that Nichols College would take the initiative on that in terms of putting some of those up there on the hill. That'd be interesting.
I have a question about battery storage.
Sure.
Can we ask our town electrical inspector what his codes and regulations on that?
Yeah, that's good.
Because
Good
I know
suggestion.
that's in the electrical code book. So maybe something's already written in there.
I know a lot of people that are buying like these Tesla roofs and stuff, they have the Tesla battery packs that
Yeah.
mount on the wall.
Yeah.
Some of them have 2 or 3 in their house, I mean, you can literally run your
My
house for
neighbor
a
has
week
that.
on one of those, so. I mean, people are putting them inside their houses.
Yeah, I don't know if there's electrical code or, probably is, cause like you said, Tesla, I know the guy next door to me has it, the cop. He has a nice Tesla system in his house.
Yeah, so,
So they're storing energy for.
Yeah, right
for
in
the-
his garage.
yeah, Tesla makes a unit that mounts to
Yeah.
your wall, it's about 6 inches
Why
thick
would
and
you do
probably.
that though? Why not just charge it up when you need to?
Well, if you got solar panels on your own roof, you keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
And if the power goes off, you have like a
Okay.
5-day supply at all times in your house, you know, you don't have to worry about it.
It's like an emergency generator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
On the short-term rentals, I had a Zoom call today with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission.
so you're talking like Airbnbs.
What's that?
You're talking like Airbnbs,
These are like Airbnb and Vrbo, that kind of thing.
yeah.
So we had asked to use our LPA time for that project, for their assistance to help us craft some kind of a bylaw to govern that use. And during the call, they felt that it was kind of a regional issue that was larger than just Dudley. So they wanted to do something called a DLTA project, which is the District Local Technical Assistance, which is a regional effort to enlist other towns in the effort so that they can serve more than just Dudley on this issue. So I said, fine,
Yep.
which meant that it probably would get pushed back until the fall.
Right,
So, two things. One, we then have our LPA time back.
Mhm.
So if you have other ideas for how to use that,
It's
we
okay.
can do it.
The issue, is the issue with those similar to like other things? If you don't have a zone for them, they're allowed everywhere?
Well, we've been taking the opposite approach. If they're not permitted, then they're not allowed.
Okay, so that can pretty much force them out everywhere.
Right. And it seems like a lot of people are doing it now. The state passed some legislation 2 or 3 years ago which allows community to get excise taxes, like room taxes from those. And we want to be sure that they're done properly. So the thought is we can do it either as a zoning bylaw, in which case you would identify districts where you would allow them or not allow them, or by special permit, and set forth regulations for typical zoning kinds of things. Or we could do it as a general bylaw, in which case it wouldn't really be a planning board issue. It would be more of a registration process where they'd have to come in and register with the town. There'd be inspections in terms of, does it meet all the building codes and fire codes, things of that sort. So the town would have oversight in that respect and get some revenue from it. And then the homeowners then would get the revenue from renting out their space, which would help them financially. So I think, for example, Nichols College, they have parents come and visit their kids, but there's no motels or hotels in Dudley for them to stay, so
You go to
they might do
Southbridge.
an Airbnb for a couple of nights and,
Southbridge, Auburn.
Yeah.
right. So they're going to work on this and come back with, model bylaws,
Yeah.
which we can then look at. We can decide
I mean,
whether zoning or non-zoning.
I'm sure there's towns that have already taken this up and have them in place so they can have something to go by. It's not like.
They mentioned West Brookfield has a zoning bylaw that they're bringing forward to town meeting in the spring.
Okay,
So it seemed like, worthwhile to participate in that effort, so
okay,
I'll
all
keep you posted as that goes along.
right.
And then, another issue came up, which you're not gonna be happy about, but, chickens.
Yes.
The building department gets lots of phone calls and complaints about chickens. And currently, in the zoning bylaw, you can do it on properties of 5 acres or more.
Permitted everywhere for chickens.
In less than 5 acres, you need a special permit from the ZBA.
As livestock.
Correct.
But the definition section, chickens or poultry is separated from livestock.
The ZBA has been dealing with it as a special permit application, so.
Yeah.
So my thought was, maybe we could have an ad hoc committee. For example, someone from the Board of Health, the Animal Control Officer, the Agricultural Commission, the Planning Board, maybe a selectman or somebody, to look at this issue and come up with some kind of an approach that would help alleviate, the issue, which is, difficult now for everybody, because
Fresh eggs.
if you have chickens next door and, you've got roosters crowing at all hours of the day, that's not a good situation. But if conversely, if you want to grow chickens for, your own use, is that a real problem? So I think we could look at things like limits on the number of chickens, prohibition on roosters.
What are other towns doing? What's Webster like?
Webster's got 6 chickens,
Chickens?
no permits or anything.
6 chickens
6 hens. You
per
got
lot?
6 hens, yeah, per anybody.
Yeah.
So, it's a problem, and I think something should be done, at least attempted. I don't know if we could.
I'd like to get Burlingame in here to explain that to us.
What's that?
I'd like to see how Burlingame sees the poultry as part of livestock. Because if you look at the definition, it's clearly separated in the zoning bylaw anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 6.01.
So, I mean, that alone
Agriculture.
is an issue then, right?
Yeah,
How
I'd
do
say
you
it's an issue.
categorize them?
Well,
You know-
what's Oxford? I'm not even gonna go to Charlton, they probably allow them, but.
Well, Charlton's just like our bylaw, but it includes chickens at the end of livestock. Same use by district thing, yeah.
So, what I thought is maybe I'd ask the selectmen to see if they would be interested in creating that committee.
And is it just gonna handle chickens, or is it gonna handle other small animals? I mean, what if somebody wants mini goats?
Well, I don't know. I think chickens is the main issue, but,
Chickens are the main issue?
yeah.
Nobody's calling for mini goats.
Put a cow in your front yard and see if somebody calls.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is. I just don't know.
Okay.
I don't get those calls. And if I do get them, I refer them to somebody else. So, but yeah, maybe it's more of a global kind of approach.
Yeah.
So if we did it as a zoning bylaw, then, the planning board would be involved and would, set the regulations and enforcement mechanisms.
And then the
If
building
we did
inspector.
it as a general bylaw, it wouldn't be under the planning board, it would go somewhere else. Probably the animal control officer, for example, could be in charge of that.
Okay, I was gonna say, would the building inspector be the enforcement agent of it? Cause that's maybe a little bit.
Well,
out of
you
his-
could, but I'm not sure
He'd want it.
he'd want it, or if he would be qualified to understand, the sanitary practices of chickens and,
Yeah.
how you keep them contained and that
Do they
kind
have
of.
adequate housing and pen size and all that stuff?
Right.
Free range chickens?
I can see if you're like in a res 15 or something, the houses on top of each other and get chickens, but in like a res 30
Yeah.
or plus, you got a lot more room.
Yeah, I think you need setbacks.
Yeah, setbacks. So
What do we do with pigeons? I mean, is there a big difference between chickens and pigeons? Well, size, obviously, but chickens may have, wander around a bit, and they're not flying away, but people have pigeon coops, I suspect, in some cases.
Pigeons are okay.
That's okay?
Yep, February,
So it's the size of the
May
bird.
4th, 2017, they had a guy that had pigeons on the ZBA, in front of the ZBA, and he had 5 chickens.
On first
They,
day, yeah.
they only got him for the chickens.
Where do turkeys fall? Turkeys, ducks, I mean.
I'll tell you, I know exactly.
We
where
got, there's a
everything
whole
falls.
range of fowl here. We're picking on chickens
I
exclusively?
think we'll put you in charge of this issue,
What's
Richard.
that?
We'll put you in charge of this issue. You're
Thanks a
so
lot. Yeah,
interested in it.
Today, gotta want to see hatching.
Well, you might get free eggs now.
So are there any
Eggs are
other
expensive.
zoning amendments you wanted to bring forward this year? Anything you could think of that we?
I think if we could rework the two that failed last time, it would be worth trying, going back and either trying to simplify them, both to the point where it's not, nobody can find fault with it, so to speak, like on the car charges, it would only be for new construction. The, and the driveway bylaw, we could explain that it's, we have no rules right now, we're just trying to put something in place so that there's a standardized system for common driveways going forward,
Right.
so.
Well, in Chelsea, Mass, they put those car chargers everywhere, and I don't see one car ever plugged into them.
Well, I think by 2035, the state, you won't be able to buy a gas engine anymore, will you?
Right,
That's California, is that the state as well?
no, Massachusetts adopted it.
Massachusetts as well?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Time to
You're
buy
gonna buy it, you're gonna buy cars in New Hampshire and all the time.
So I would think
Think of
gas
Tesla.
stations would be interested in converting over to charging stations, that kind of thing. But
Okay, next item on our agenda, planner's plate, do you have anything? Bill?
no,
Okay. I don't think we're gonna get any, actually, comments from the planning board.
I know we've discussed this in the past, Bill, but the folks from the marijuana facility on Chase Ave, they're coming in on what date again, is it?
The 8th, March 8th?
March 8th? Okay. I'm just gonna refer again to the town bylaws, the town zoning bylaws, if you will, and according to that, they are to report to the planning board no later than January 31st of each calendar year. So they're already delinquent, and I think you've mentioned that you made them aware of this, and hopefully this will be a one-off, and we'll see them on a regular basis going forward.
I don't know if you had a chance to check your email before the meeting tonight, but about 5:30 I sent out a revised site plan that I just got today.
Okay, I didn't see
And the
that.
revised site plan is eliminating the greenhouse.
Oh, really?
So they're not coming forward for the greenhouse now. And they've got, minor changes for utility pads, some landscaping, that kind of thing.
So they're back to putting the grow facility inside the building, like they originally had proposed?
No, so they want to go forward with the manufacturing component now. So that's why they need to upgrade some of the utility systems outside so that they have enough juice, I think, to do the manufacturing
Okay, so then that facility would just be manufacturing and resale?
at the moment. And then they might come back at some future point in time with the greenhouse again. I don't think they've abandoned it, they've postponed it.
Okay.
What happens if we're going to that flood zone area from that mill, from that bylaw?
Apparently,
And affect them?
it hasn't been an issue with the peer review in terms of
Oh.
the floodplain.
Okay.
So it's a good question, but I understand it. I guess I would assume there's no issue then if it hasn't come
And
up.
are they revising anything in their cannabis control commission? Like, is that getting revised into their new plan? Don't
They've
they-
got their license, and I don't know whether they have a certain period of time to do the cultivation or not, or whether that's just open-ended.
Well, I just wonder if they're gonna switch something around, does this go through them, cannabis control?
You think that would be,
Yeah,
it is-
that would have to be regulated, right?
exactly.
I don't think
Cannabis
that-
control should have the oversight, who gets
Yeah.
regulation for what, and once they're licensed, then it should come to us.
Right.
For what they're licensed for. I mean, they shouldn't come for us for something that they don't have a license. I mean, what's the point?
Well,
Not-
no,
They don't have
they-
an application in for something.
They got the special permit included manufacturing, so they've already been approved for that locally. So they're just doing some modifications to the site plan to accommodate that.
Right.
And that would be within the existing mill building. as
So
I
they have
understand it.
approval from the Cannabis Control Commission to do manufacturing
Yes,
and growing
yep,
for both?
yeah,
Both.
and the retail.
If I may, that January 31st requirement, they have to provide a copy of all current applicable state licenses for the facility and/or its owners and demonstrate continued compliance with the conditions of the special permit. That, again, was part of the bylaw. Just wanted to, the word time triggered a thought. With that's Jesse Road, that's about to expire, isn't it?
Yes, I
Is
think,
it in April or the plan?
it should be, yes, soon. I did get a request from them, I forgot about it until you mentioned it, to do an extension. But I
An
think,
extension.
I think at the last time they came forward, you
We
said
agreed
you
to,
wouldn't really
we agreed
want
to a
1
1
year.
year and that was it, and if they don't
to
have.
grant another extension,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, so I think if they have submitted something to you, I think your reply could be that the board's not inclined to do it at this time. So they're gonna lose their subdivision status if they
Right.
don't start the project.
I know they've been actively marketing that site and haven't had any takers on it yet, so.
Yeah.
Can I go back to that cannabis control committee?
Sure.
They're supposed to employ so many town residents,
Yeah.
right? You know how many residents actually work there?
Could you get that? Could you ask them for that?
Was
That
that-
should be one of the things on Richard's January 31st meeting.
Was that part of their,
Yeah, I thought there was
Yeah.
supposed to be.
Yeah, I think there was. a
Priority
stipulation.
Dudley residents.
not in the zoning decision, but there might have
No.
been in the host community agreement?
Yeah, the host community agreement is what it was.
Okay.
I don't know that there's.
No, it was
I don't
in the
know
other
if
thing
it's-
too.
There's a specific number? I don't think there was a
Special permit.
specific number. Is it a percentage or?
I think it just said priority. I don't think it said a specific number. But they're also supposed to paint those double lines between that stop sign where the bridge is closed and up onto Route 12. That was part of the special permit too. That hasn't been done. I don't know if they have a certain time though.
Well, I think I seen another,
Well, we can discuss that with them if they, if that was required and they haven't done it, they should do it.
I think I seen another town that they weren't employing so many town residents into their establishment.
Yeah, that was definitely in the special permit thing. I read that. What about Fish Road and that Hall Street one?
I believe both are still
Just up-
under consideration. I haven't seen anything on them yet.
Do you know if they were licensed or anything? The CCC licensing?
I do not know. I could check. I think, our bylaw says they need to have a license, or at least a provisional license, before they can come before the planning board. So that would be true for Fish Road.
Mhm.
I can follow up to see whether they got their final license. Hall Road, they haven't come in yet, so I don't know where they stand.
And I don't think we'll get anything from comments on the audience.
Probably not.
Yes, no.
So under other business,
We have to do comments to the planning board, don't we, or did we do that already?
that was what we just went through.
Oh.
You have one?
Yeah, I think we should give a big thank you to Tu for all of her help. and
Oh,
everything
yes.
over the past, however long it's been.
How long
And I
it-
wish you the best. in,
Not long enough.
Future endeavors. And a big welcome to Caitlin, of course, also.
Well put.
Second.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Edmondson. I was gonna do it at the end, but we're almost there.
You do it again at the end.
That's okay.
Twice is better than never.
The next meeting is set for March 8th at 7 PM. Again, that's when we'll have the public hearing for the marijuana establishment at Chase Mill there. And do we have any, oh yeah, I think we saw one approval for a voucher.
We have two
We have two now?
from Graves, both from Graves.
Both from Graves. We have one for a total of, looks like $886. And then we have,
886.
say that again?
886.
886, yes. And then the other one is for $1,811.80. So could we have a motion that we would allow Mr. Scanlon to pay both of these invoices to Graves Engineering?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we allow the planner, Mr. Scanlon, to make payment of $886 and $1,811.80.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye, unanimous? So we can pay those bills. Other town notices, I think everybody, I don't know if you saw it in your email, but we got an email from the town clerk saying we need to go through and do there's a new website for training on conflict of interest law, so everybody needs to go through anything. I think at the end, they probably have something that you can print out and sign that's saying.
No, I just did it actually 5 minutes before I came. I still got another
All right.
10 minutes to go, though.
Okay.
I think it actually goes to the town clerk.
Oh, so she'll
I
get it
don't- You
automatically?
don't actually need to print it out and give it to her.
So I forwarded it to you, you can, do you want
Yeah.
to send it, or you want me to forward to her as well, or?
No, I did already.
Yeah, I was gonna print it out, but then they said I still have another 10 minutes.
Suitable for
freight.
freight? Mr. Chairman, just to
Yep.
go back on something town notices, I'm reminded of the fact that there's a meeting, a joint meeting that Board of Selectmen and the FAA on the 27th of the month. And part of that, as I understand it, will be consideration of budgets. As you may know, the department heads were asked to present budgets that were 10% less than the previous year. I think, Mr. Scanlon, you fall into that category. I don't know that we have much to cut, but I would suggest or invite anyone who's has that evening available to them to maybe be in attendance at that meeting, so we can kind of keep an eye on what is going on and what might be coming in terms of the town's economic distress at the present time.
Bill, were we able to do that? What they asked for was, were we able to cut the 10% or?
I think the town administrator said he's not proposing to cut 10% off of my salary.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what?
Because I think, I think that's literally the only line item on the budget.
Right.
No more paper, that's what they.
And we have the CMRPC dues,
Yeah, and we can't change that,
can't cut that.
so,
So there's expenses, we could cut that item in the budget.
okay, so no more seminars. Sorry, Mr. Clark.
Wow.
Your-
Really?
Your education's gonna end for the year.
Well, it was that one that you sent us information on,
Yes,
the
the-
March 18th.
The Citizens Planner Training Collaborative has they're back to their
Yeah,
annual conference at Holy Cross every year. So, whole day worth of workshops on planning. You get to meet other planning board members and mingle and find out how other towns do stuff, so it's really worthwhile.
been to many.
It's a Saturday.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that would be deleted as far as any budgetary concerns are.
Well, I'm still keeping some money in the budget for that kind of
Yeah,
thing, so
Right. It's gonna,
so I think it's important to.
as suggested, it's gonna be interesting.
How about if we just run our meetings 10% faster?
Okay.
Can't give back our stipends, I'm sorry.
10% of nothing is what?
Yeah, That's fuzzy math. So, okay. Anything else from the board?
Nothing here.
Okay. So, and we have, any other correspondence from towns? No. Okay. All right, so if somebody want to make a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've made it almost record time this evening. I would move that we adjourn at this point.
We have a motion and a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Always unanimous.